October 2nd, 2022. Welcome to Traversing the Transits with Teri. This is where we're at the astrological dynamics this week, and then we're going to get advice from the angels by doing readings and looking at what's coming up ahead. Before I start, I'm just going to do a little bit of business. I do these readings by whole sign Western astrology, focusing first on your rising sign and then your moon. I believe that the moon is incredibly important, and the human by nature does not get enough credit or credence to their emotional body and how that affects how they perceive their life, how they walk through the world, and what they experience. So you first look at your rising sign, then look at your moon, and then your sun sign. If you have 3 or more personal planets in one sign or house, that is a very important focus that the soul has chosen within this lifetime. So I would check that as well. There was something else I was going to say, and Mercury, South Node is going over my Mercury, making my brain extremely exciting. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Small Wildflowers, Sean, Nora, Katerina, Scarred Owl. It's great to see you. You know, I got to say, let me get my notes. There's a lot going on. So Pluto's been stationing at 26 degrees. It is going to go direct on the 7th, Friday, I believe, here in the Pacific time. We also have Mercury stationing today to go direct. I think that this particular Mercury retrograde to me feels super powerful because Mercury is making a trine as it has gone back into Virgo. It's made a trine with Pluto. So it's been making a favorable aspect, having a frank and authentic conversation without ego. That's how I perceive this. Mercury going retrograde in Libra gives me an opportunity to review how I show up in partnerships related to Venus, partnership with money, partnership with my skills, partnership with myself as an individual and my self-worth, and what I do when I bring that into a relationship. Mercury is not, Mercury's going to slow its roll, and for at least until the 10th, it's going to be in Virgo. So it's going to be making an aspect to Neptune. And Neptune is retrograde in Pisces. I think this is really powerful because the combination of the trine between Pluto and Mercury and the opposition between Mercury and Neptune gives me an opportunity to see where maybe I have not looked at the benefit of the disruption, the divineness in any challenges I've had, where maybe I've been escaping or I've been looking at things, hoping they would change, hoping the other side would change. And now it's an opportunity for me to sort of really get real about if this, whatever the opposition is it, am I escaping too much? Am I not looking, and in this way, am I dragging out an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable dynamic in my life, something that's no longer serving me? And then within that willingness to look at that, it also gives you an opportunity to just shift it, not really judge it. There's no point to any blame. The human is trained by nature to think a certain way based on, how we've grown up, the things we've been taught, etc. Lucky's having a little moment. So I want to offer it this way because Mercury will not be completely out of its shadow period until October 16th. That's a solid 2 weeks from now. I also want to say this because I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. Again, South Node's on my Mercury. Saturn and Uranus, both are retrograde. Saturn is stationing. It's I tried to look for the exact period of time it stations, but we're going to feel it all month because it's going to go forward on the 23rd. And I started to really think about how Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So here we go. We've got Mercury making an opposition to Neptune, Saturn making a square with Uranus. Really, are my thoughts contributing to the uncomfortable experiences I'm having, the lack I'm having, the telling of the old story over and over and over again? Saturn represented there. So I think that this particular week's biggest influences are not temporary, but offers opportunity for rooted change. I don't want to say permanent change. I want to say rooted change. Lucky's now doing things that are distracting me. Hold on a second. Lucky, stop, please. We're working. Will you put your head down and relax? Thank you, darling. Okay, so let me kind of encapsulate what I'm trying to say here. Saturn in its final square to Uranus, which is going to be exact. It's exact today at 18 degrees, the Virgo degree. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Virgo rules my obligations in some way, what I feel enslaved to, my job, my health. And how have I been perceiving that? Because the Virgo degree is the process of it. So if I allow myself to look at the squares between Uranus and Saturn and going back and forth, we have an opportunity to look at our history, Saturn, to look at the structures we've been creating, and then to take the higher octave of Uranus, of Mercury being Uranus, and am I willing to be a discoverer in my own life? Am I willing to do, the exploration without judgment in order to innovate and renovate and utilize new technologies, new epiphanies in order to make my life more enjoyable? And this is where I'm going with this. I really believe that the human does not, or the soul does not come into the human experience for ease, for this constant sense of flow, but rather for the disruption, for the unknowing, in order to create knowing from a deeper soul's level and then experience it in the structure, in the building that Saturn has to offer. You guys know I watch Ancient Aliens all the time on Saturday night, and I was watching some repeats last night. And they go into astrology and Greek mythology, and they were talking about Cronus, which is Saturn, and Saturn being the original father. Aha. And I thought that was so interesting because oftentimes, if a father will allow their child to ride their bike down the street wobbly with this potential of falling down and scraping your knee, but also knowing that the child showing tenacity in that endeavor gives the child the resources, the confidence, the willingness to endure when there's no sight and end, or there's no goal, or there's no sight to the finishing of the goal. So I really think that this final conversation between Saturn and Uranus is sort of like Uranus offering me a new way of implementing and integrating the new things I've discovered about my history, how my history has worked for me, how my fears are starting to work for me, and how I feel actually accomplished and as if I've built something new. There's a new structure to be had. And I think this is, again, where this is evidenced by Pluto's transformational energy, making a trine to Mercury as it moves out of the house of obligation and enslavement, duty and employment, and moves back into the sign of harmony and cooperation and balance. So I think this is super exciting. I think that this isn't easy by any means. I actually think that I know Saturn's going to go forward and then hit my Chiron again. And I keep thinking that as these planets go back and forward, each time they visit the same point, it gives me as a human an opportunity to implement what I have learned the first time around. And we won't I'm going to quickly touch on the idea that Mars is going through Gemini, and there is so much crazy, angry energy, man. People are 0 to 60 and willing to go to the mat, fight, be aggressive. And so I think that these retrogrades, especially with Pluto involved here, I get to really get more psychological in how I see these things and then step out of the fray, step out of the mayhem, and in doing so, help elevate the vibration of more ease, more harmony, more cooperation. There is such a divinity to the disruption that we are experiencing right now. And I know it's not easy to feel that initially, but I think as we dig deeper, we'll realize that these times are really the fertilizer, the manure that's going to make the future garden grow in ways that it never could before. And I think this is going to be super dividing in some respects between the conscious and the unconscious. And when I say this, the consciousness is not about, oh, I'm a spiritual person, I know this, I know that. It's more about the consciousness of realizing that my perception and my choices are dictating what I'm going to experience tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. So it's very exciting. You know, we have Saturn going through Aquarius, which is super innovative. And at the same time, it's a fixed sign. We have Uranus, you know, making this square in the sign of Taurus, which wants to, you know, plow the fields and see, you know, the harvest coming up. So there is an opportunity to use the fixed energy in a determined way and then realize that it's through flexibility and a willingness to be the discoverer and move forward anyway. Because you may discover things that initially feel unpleasant, but that unpleasant situation really has so many opportunities and so much fertile ground. So, all right, let's go into our readings. We're going to start with Libra and work our way towards Virgo. When I started this broadcast this morning, it's been nothing but cold, and now I have a turtleneck on and the sun is beating on me. God bless America, right? All right, so here we go. We're going to start with the tarot card, then we're going to do our angel reading, and we're just going to plug along. Again, starting with Libra and working our way to Virgo. You'll look at your rising sign, but if you know your moon, this is really super important because the moon, you know, the human is trained not to care about their emotional body. And if we think of Saturn as the original father giving us tasks to do, I don't care if you like it, get it done. Again, there's a dismiss of the emotional body. And when I say to be aware of the emotional body, this isn't giving yourself permission to go down the rabbit's hole of poor me. It's more about seeing how I'm feeling about a situation. Am I willing to be brave? Am I willing to step into a new vibration that is untested and to trust that there is a bigger picture of my evolution here? My willingness to receive, my willingness to allow for my own happiness. Wow, that's going to be warm up there in Oregon. I would assume the leaves are changing and it's beautiful. Welcome, New Zealand. Good to see you, Crystal. Happy Monday morning. All right, so let's start with Libra. Let's see what the tarot card is for our birthday Libras. Okay. This is a very interesting energy, the Four of Pentacles, okay? Now, this is a guy who actually has money, but he's hoarding his money and not in a very comfortable way. And I want to offer it this way because I don't, really follow world news or too much of the news in my own country, but things are very sketchy right now. There's a lot of concern about resources. Gas prices have gone up again here in California. And so I want to offer Libras an opportunity to see where they may be overly trying to manage a situation to a place of uncomfortableness, holding on to something. And if for some reason the Mercury retrograde has brought illuminations of some kind that make you feel as if you must give up one thing in order to feel balance, I feel as if maybe your perception is only coming from one direction, and this could potentially get you stuck. This is an energy of feeling stuck, and it doesn't always indicate that how you're feeling stuck is really in the material world. So let's look and see what Spirit has to say. Because for Libra, and off the top of my head, I'd have to think Libra rising is exactly the opposite of me. So that would make Aries your 7th house. That would make Capricorn your 4th house, Cancer your 10th house, So we're going to see Pluto's aspect, that trine to Mercury from your first house to your fourth house. So maybe there's something about you surrendering to the transformation of how you and what you think about in the way of your voice within your home. You know, Capricorn in the fourth house on some level can have a little bit of a depressing feeling at home, or not feeling the most warm, fuzzy place. And Libra loves warm and fuzzy. So let's see where you're feeling stuck. Our first angel for Libra rising, moon, sun, and stelliums is Archangel Michael. The second is Francesca. The third is the Patience card. And the final is Bethany. You know, whenever I see the Libra Aries axis, I always think it's about two me's becoming a we, not in the way of absorption. The we is not a giving up of the me, but a balance of the me that allows for really true individuality and its own co-creation. So let's see here, where Archangel Michael is asking you to be courageous in how you're holding on to something, and how you could potentially be holding on to something so tightly that you're not allowing more to come into the picture. We have the spider joining Archangel Michael. We have Francesca being joined by the movement card. We have Patience being joined by the wasp. And then we have Bethany being joined by the focus card. The shadow side of Libra, and I'm a Libra sun, although I don't feel very Libra most of the time. Aries rising here. I feel as if the shadow side is to be overly cooperative in partnerships, to be overly compromising to the detriment of the self. That's why I always started with two me's become a we. And I love that, because the M and the W, they are cooperative in their inversion. You know, they're the same shape, just different ways of looking at things. So I think that what the spider is representing is a relationship here. It's always sort of started off with this idea for me of the spider going into the web and it being cooperative in the cycle of life. And now I think this is about Archangel Michael saying, do you have the courage to see where you, Libra, may be a little bit stuck in how you're perceiving things? And I want to offer it this way, because oftentimes, especially in partnership, and we've seen Mercury going through Libra, then coming back into Virgo, and then it's going to go back through Libra forward, and Venus will join it, or Venus is already there, actually, excuse me. But I want to offer it this way, because there could potentially be somewhere where Libra has been saying, you know what, if you would just do this, I would be happy. Or if you would shift this way of thinking, I would be happy. And I think that potentially, Libra, this is your opportunity to have movement in your focus. And rather than looking at what is being given to you by another person, maybe this is an opportunity for you to really observe what you're giving to yourself, in the way of giving yourself permission to be the me in the we, because we have the Patience card in the Angel's Advice, and we have the wasp here. And Patience really represents an observation of what's going on within my world, within how potentially maybe I'm showing up, because I'm getting a little stuck in, well, I've been giving you this and I've been compromising this way, and now it's your turn to compromise. It's your turn to show up. It's your turn to, pass the baton my way. And I feel like there could be that feeling, because inadvertently Libra has not been taking care of themselves. Bethany is about self-care in the mind, self-care in the heart, self-care in the physical, how you treat yourself. And there's the focus card. And here we see Francesca saying, when you shift your focus, you'll start to see movement. When I work with couples, oftentimes, especially, we'll see a lot of communication issues. And what I tend to discover is that there is an expectation of how my communication will be received. So inadvertently, I get stuck in telling somebody what they want to hear, and rather than the real truth of things. So I kind of want to offer it in the way that this is not about a bold, like sort of snarky truth, as much as being able to communicate in a way that you would receive and hear favorably. And in doing so, having the courage to really speak from a balanced place where you're compromising, but not just to the other person, but for yourself, for your own sense of the me within the we. And I want to offer it this way, because Libra does not just represent marriage. It represents professional partnerships, contractual partnerships. It represents police, diplomacy, where fairness and harmony are implemented. So I look there, Libra, where you may be inadvertently feeling stuck or feeling like you're having to hold back a bit because you're afraid of a reaction. And if you're afraid of someone being angry with you, then really sitting back and thinking about how can I express myself in a way that if I heard this, I would be able to receive it. So there you go. I'm sorry to hear that, Shelley. It's so hard to lose one of our fur babies to the other side. While I don't believe they ever die, I know not having them in the physical is just awful. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Jewel. I hope she shows back up. You know, that's interesting because we're seeing Mercury that rules children. And for some of us, our pets are our children. It also, Mercury rules pets in Virgo, and it's making an opposition to Neptune, which can represent loss. And so, or an erosive energy. So I sometimes think when one of our animals crosses over or something that we love, it also gives us an opportunity to create a stronger connection with the other side, with those subtle feelings that we get and those subtle messages. Because initially they feel almost like musings or imaginations. And then as we get used to the idea of maybe this is real, we'll start to get more validation of that. So look for that, you guys. Look for the validation that your pets are always with you. Alrighty, let's go on to our Scorpios. Okay, we have the Ace of Cups. This is a wonderful energy. It's the infusion of love. It's the infusion of emotion and an offering of peace, and an offering for your cup to overflow. Now, we're going to have at the end of the month on the 25th, a eclipse, partial solar eclipse at 2 degrees Scorpio. This is significant because Scorpio is all about transformation. Scorpio is part of the axis of the North and South Node going on right now. And Scorpio is also a fixed sign. And sometimes one of the challenges when we get in a lower energy is we get fixed in that energy. And I think somewhere this is an opportunity to feel the cup of love, to feel that through the South Node spiritual dynamic of where am I maybe edging God out? Maybe there's a bigger picture to things. Again, this is kind of where I refer back to the beginning of the video, where I'm starting to be convinced that I didn't come here to be Teri Hunter and be this, lottie-dottie teacher and feel love all the time. I actually think I came here for the roller coaster ride. And then every time I get over a dark spot, every time I persevere and create things like working for myself, going on 9 years. I can't even believe I've been doing this for 9 years on my own. It feels like I just started a minute ago, and it's something to be proud of. And all of that accomplishment was born out of frustration. So I think, Scorpio, there's an opportunity for you to start to pay more attention to how the cup of love is coming to you. And it may not all be in a fuzzy, warm package. It may be through a little bit of divine disruption. Let's see. Because that square between Saturn and Uranus that's going on, it's really an opportunity to discover and implement new things about yourself. I keep getting this image that a square, everyone talks about how tense it is, how challenging it is. And I keep thinking about a house. When you build a house, it's on a square, platform. And each square, while it appears to be going in a different direction, creates a cooperation in the structure. So I think it's a little bit about the old me versus the new me. And rather than trying to leave one for the other, how do they work cooperatively? which is the tension, because the human will tell you to release what's happened to you. Let go of your problems. Let go of your fears. That is BS with a capital B and a capital S. And that doesn't mean Blake Shelton. So if we don't integrate our crap, we're just going to be overwhelmed by it. Oh, I'm so warm all of a sudden. That sun just came beating down, and I don't have a shade here. It's still broken. All right, Scorpio, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Here's Indra, the light worker, Shanti, the angel of peace, Archangel Michael, and Crystal. Oh, this is beautiful. You know, when I think about the idea of Scorpio, I really think it's the ultimate caterpillar to butterfly. It's the ultimate one must appear to die in order for an evolved version, but is it really dying? No. So here's Indriel being joined by the horse. Here is Shanti being joined by Merlin. Here's Archangel Michael being joined by the partnership card. And here is Crystal being joined by the spider. I want to offer this to my Scorpio, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. If you're in relationship with pretty much any type of thing, if you're in a relationship with another person, if you're in a relationship with a spirit of some kind, I'm talking about bourbon, whiskey, vodka, margaritas, whatever it is. If you're in relationship with even with your children, with food, I really think this is an opportunity to see if your relationships are serving what you want in the way of feeling peace and love. Because here's Indriel, the light worker, and here's the horse. And I feel like the horse is about going in a new direction, trying something different. And I believe that this might be not sitting in judgment of where you've been or who you've been spending your time with, or even the quality of those dynamics, but do they serve the evolved version of me now? Do they serve the butterfly? Because you're being offered a new journey of peace and of alchemy. Alchemy is where that hunk of coal goes into that pressurized situation and comes out a multifaceted, light-bearing being. And this is wizardry. And I think it's about having courage in partnership, but I'm not completely sure that partnership is with just another person. Yes, Scorpio by nature rules other people's resources, their money, their inheritances, taxes, death, sex. So here is now my relationship card again, and Crystal saying have faith and hope. There's more on the horizon that you can't see. So I want to offer it this way, because in order to be a super healthy we, allowing for the me. And I think that's a really important thing when we look at this Taurus and Scorpio axis, because Taurus is wanting to develop its own skills. That second house is my skills, how I use my talents and my gifts. And then there's the family history that's superimposed upon that can either contribute to the flourishing of that idea or the diminishment of it. So sometimes when there's a diminishment, we end up on the Scorpio side of the axis, where we're more dependent on other people's money, or we use sex as a way to continue to enroll somebody in a relationship with us, whether it's healthy or not. So I think for Scorpio, the big question right now is, are you, now remember we have the trine going on between Pluto and Mercury, this is a harmonious aspect. How do I think? What am I speaking? What am I saying all the time to myself? Who am I hanging out with? And then the Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury really gives me an opportunity to look at Saturn's old structure and what I believe I've built, where fear and depression are eclipsing me, and allow myself to really start to think I want to accept more when it comes to feeling loved, to feeling at peace. And in order to do so, maybe I need to delegate a little bit more to the occult side of Scorpio, maybe studying more astrology, studying more spirituality, so that there is a wisdom more to this divine disruption that allows for the alchemy, for the coagulation, for the integration, which brings peace through the challenging times and gives you the courage to stand in partnership with the things in your life that support you in an empowered way versus making you feel diminished. Because I do believe there's new things on the horizon, and not only because you've called them forth, but because you've prepared to be ready to receive them, to let them stick, to allow them to root. It's like, I do deserve this. I'm ready to receive this. All right, let's go on to our Sagittariuses. All right, Sagittarius, our tarot card is the World. This is really a beautiful energy. It is the Fool has been through the journey of the major arcana, and here's really where we see everything come together. There's reward offered here. You know, there's a lot of integration of all the experiences. And when I think of that, I think it's not just the experience of how I walk through the world, but part of how the world is as I walk through it. Throughout history, there have been, wars and challenges and famine and slavery and imbalance. And I'm not sure that there won't always be that on this planet. And yet at the same time, being co-creators, being aware that our thoughts are things, gives us an opportunity to come under that veil of unknowing, use the elements that we know, not only from a soul level, but what we start to play with from a soul level and bring into the physical, bring into the material. So let's see where there's potential for reward. And when I look at this, I see that bull, and I see the eagle, and I kind of feel like when I see it, I could also kind of go here too. There's this air element here, and here we have Uranus and Taurus, and we have this could be thought, Mercury, and this in some ways could be Saturn. I don't know why I want to put it that way, but I feel like this potential of seeing things and from a higher perception, being willing to do the hard work in order to create the reward. The Lion, Leo, is always about courage and coming from my heart. And I kind of see these as accesses. So maybe I'm really looking at my heart versus what I have learned physically in order to bring all these things together. I don't think there's ever where we want to take one thing and remove it and replace it with something else. This is why I think when healers try to do releasing ceremonies, it's kind of not a very influential thing to do. It doesn't really, it's counterintuitive to how the human is hardwired. All right, here we go, Sagittarius. Let's see where this reward comes, where you have to, that she's also naked in this. So she's vulnerable to receiving the reward and trusting that if she starts to feel good, it sticks. I think that's an important aspect as well. All right, our first angel is Crystal. The second is Yvonne. The third is Mystique. And the final is Bridget. Sagittarius, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. We have the novice joining Crystal. We have Yvonne being joined by the Lady of the Lake. We have Mystique being joined by the Queen. And we have Bridget being joined by the movement card. Okay, so we've been experiencing Mercury retrograde. We've had 6 planets retrograde, not including Chiron. We have Pluto about to move forward, definitely in its shadow period. Mercury is stationing to go direct today. So if you've been frustrated, if it's felt like you've had cement boots on, there could be a wisdom that these retrogrades offered for Sagittarius that you can't see, because here is Crystal and there is the novice. And I want to offer it this way because this is skill without practice. And Crystal is saying that there are things happening behind the scenes that you can't see just yet. And this is why I believe this reward is coming, because there's something about these retrogrades that has offered you an opportunity to really get real with your truth and to be vulnerable to it. So here we go. We see this woman in the middle of everything, standing there naked, but her arms are open. She's ready to receive. There we have the Lady of the Lake holding Excalibur. effortlessly in the midst of the storm, being vulnerable to this dynamic that I've been going through a bit of a war between an old version of myself and an evolved version of myself, and the integration of those two things. But Sagittarius, it's keep charging ahead, expect miraculous solutions, and remember that miracles don't happen because of magic. They happen because you align on a belief level that you deserve to receive that which you are seeking to feel reward in, because there is movement happening. There are things going on, and your eyeballs may not be able to see it. And if you can't identify it with your eyeballs, then you inadvertently may take action in a direction to try to satiate that feeling of unknowing. But I think this is an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and say, you know what? Maybe this is a time when the universe is moving the chess pieces for me. Maybe this isn't a time to try to affect some sort of outcome, but rather allow the outcome to come to me so that I can build the resources to know that I've done the work. I've done the work of integration. I've done the work of awareness. I've done the work of surrender. I've done the work of identifying my resistant energy. I've done the work of identifying how many times I tell an old story while I try to usher in a new energy. Can't do it. All right. So I think this is great. I want to offer it this way too, because Sagittarius by nature represents philosophical beliefs, big pictures of things. And I feel as if this is an opportunity to really implement that. My big picture is the universe is working out for me, and everything I need is being provided for me. And now I can actually sit back and maybe relax a little bit about that, because overthinking about something, worrying about something is really not allowing the universe to do what it is asking to do, which is to give you a new experience. All right, an experience of reward. All right, let's go on to our Capricorns, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Hello, Sabrina. Nice to see you. All right, Capricorn here. Now, don't get upset, but this does represent Capricorn. And I want to offer it this way, because this particular card represents an energy of illusion, of being trapped in a situation, of being obligated to something that may not serve me. And sometimes we feel slightly burned when we have to be inspired to go against the grain, to do something different. So let's talk about this, Capricorn, especially my late-born Capricorns. You are experiencing the conjunction of Pluto. 26 degrees. Anybody who's a late-born Capricorn has had Pluto sitting on your sun, your moon, your rising. And if you have a stellium, this has been very significant, because it's been requiring you to look at your history, to look at where you have implemented structure that was based on somebody else's agenda. And while it may have felt like there was order at one point, is it now no longer serving your happiness? Because this is where I believe that Capricorn really becomes the leader, because Saturn is exalted in Libra. And I think this is so interesting that the houses naturally square each other. So there's a tense conversation. And yet the ruler of Capricorn is at its favorite energy in Libra. Now, why is it favored there? Is it because of Venus? I don't know. I don't know if that's it, because Venus with luxury is not really Capricorn's thing, but diplomacy, leadership, fairness, all the aspects that bring out the scales of justice. Now that makes sense to me. So now I look at this Capricorn and I look at the lived. If you take devil and you put it backwards, it's the lived. So I think there's an opportunity to unshackle yourself from old structures that aren't serving you anymore. And your ruling planet is having this conversation that is asking with Uranus, saying, hey, implement what you've discovered about yourself. It's time to take this to the higher octave of what you're thinking and what you're experiencing, and then showing leadership as you lift I don't want to say they're imaginary, but there are times when Capricorn will feel obligated where other signs would just be like, I'm going my own way. I can't be obligated to this anymore. But Capricorn will stick it out to their detriment. So let's look and see where Spirit would like you to unleash yourself. Because Pluto's been doing this to Capricorn for years, going into the structure and saying, is this working for you anymore? Our first angel for Capricorn is Archangel Gabriel. The second is Akasha, the teacher. The third is Fiona. And the final is Layla. Archangel Gabriel rules Mercury. She rules communication. So this could be where you lift the obligation of the self-talk. You know, Mercury's going direct right now. It's making an opposition to Neptune. And in doing so, we could remove the illusions or the erosive dynamics of obligation and come into more win-win situations. I think that should be a tagline for all contracts, the win-win. So Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the novice. Akasha is being joined by the wind fairy. Fiona is being joined by the partnership card. And Layla is being joined by the disruption card. So I want to say this because Capricorn, you know, it really does like to be the builder. And sometimes when you're starting these thoughts are things, it doesn't feel like you're building in the material world. So this really being able to identify where the chains have been binding you, where you have been trained by others throughout your lifetime, that this is the obligation you must meet in order to be a good person, to be a contributing person in society. Because Capricorn, Pluto has been asking you for years now to really surrender to this new way of thinking and to allow joy and allow fun and allow the things that you find inspiring to be the I want to say the carrot. I want to say the goal, the new reward, because Akasha is the teacher and the wind fairy is about thoughts. And that's what you've been learning. I don't think you're the teacher. I think you've been learning about your thoughts. You've been learning about your things. And I think that as you've learned, this has been hard because there's this part of you that wants to go back to the historic order of and structure, whether it's balanced or not. At least you know where you're expected to be at any given time. So now Spirit is saying, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, will you be in partnership with us or will you micromanage us? Because sometimes that's the energy of Capricorn, very leadership oriented. This is how it's always been. And inadvertently, you could be defaulting back to historic dynamics and thinking that they're innovative. And Uranus is going to come back up to that and keep saying, I don't know, because here we have disruption and we have Layla talking about what you want and talking to Spirit about it. So in order for you to truly live the life you want to live or have some of the experiences you want to have, you may disrupt the expectations of others. So let me put it like this. Let's say you've been, a great employee and you've been working at your job and, every weekend you go karaoke singing and everybody in the karaoke bar is telling you you're a freaking star, but you're like, la, la, la. And then you get courageous. And then you go and you try to do something you've never done before, but there's no guarantee. And then your boss says to you, if you don't show up to work, I'm firing you. And you have to choose between going to that job, which will eventually erode your life, or taking a chance on what you want. There's something going on like this, and it's going to continue to go on for you, Capricorn. And Pluto is going to take, it seems like forever to go 3 degrees, but those 3 degrees are so pivotal because they really represent the mastering of the energy of Capricorn. So I believe that the devil is offering you an opportunity to be the lived. I believe that you have an opportunity to look at how you really want to run your life and start talking, speaking, reading, absorbing yourself in that as you learn that your thoughts are things. And if you can't align your thoughts, there are teachers that are available to help you do that. And your job is to get into partnership with Spirit in an almost egoless seamless way so that you can really garnish how there will be a divine disruption that leads you much closer to the dreams and the things you want to experience on this planet. Concept is not going to work. Conceptually thinking I can do this, or I could be this, or I could have that, it never works for the human. The human wants to see that in the 3D world, wants to be able to knock on it, wants to be able to drive it, wants to be able to sleep with it. So I think that this is about really starting to give yourself permission to see that you are a priority and take it in small bites. There's no reason to overwhelm yourself, although Pluto may bring in some dynamics that, and even the Uranus Saturn square could bring in some dynamics that kind of blow things up, force a decision. All right, let's see. Let's go on to our Aquarius. The Ace of Swords. Again, a lot of thought going on here. All right, Aquarius. So this is the infusion of victory through thought. This is the infusion of new ideas and the viability of those ideas. And they're inspirational ideas. This is not anything that's manifested yet in the world. This is all sort of the musings and inspirations. And you may have been experiencing some of them during this Mercury retrograde. And as Mercury starts to move forward, you'll start to want to see about implementing them. And I also want to say this because for Aquarius, your two ruling planets are making this square. And this is sort of the heightened part of this square. It's been, I think it's the fourth time they've come to this exact position. The 18th degree is the Virgo degree. So where have I been enslaved to my health issues or to my job or to the process of what other people expect me to deliver, and to liberate myself from that. And I want to offer it this way because oftentimes when we think things come out of nowhere, it's really not the case. Oftentimes, because, Uranus rules explosive, unexpected events, lightning, and I think if we pay attention to some things, we can see them being teed up. So in this final square, I think that there's something about revisiting a similar to old dynamic and then giving you an opportunity to walk through it in a evolved version, in a way to implement the discoveries that you have had through the square journey of these planets for the last couple of years. So let's go on, Aquarius. Your first angel is Sonia. The second is Vanessa. The third is Teresa. And the final is Patience. Sonia is being joined by the Joy card. Vanessa is being joined by the Horse. Teresa is being joined by the Risk card. And Patience is being joined by the Raven. One of the challenges of being an Aquarius is because you're so innovative, because you're so willing to, I kind of think of Aquarius and Uranus and Aries as being cooperative friends because they're both very pioneering. And oftentimes we think of them as loners, but they're really not loners. There is a bigger picture of what their endeavors are because they're thinking about how people in general can move the story forward to feel more joy, more ease. And so I believe that Sonia is representing not a deceased loved one here, and not even your team of guided angels, but I think the discoveries that are offered in the Aquarian energy, and the fact that joy and any sort of inspired thought represented right here is actually a great platform to allow for manifestation, because I think that there's something moving in this square for Aquarius between your two ruling planets. This tense conversation that happens almost feels like it gets to a point where the two planets start to realize that they're yelling about the same thing and they're describing it different, and they start to laugh. So Saturn is saying, but I want you to work hard. I want you to do this. I want to build it in the real world. And Uranus is saying, yes, I do. I want to build it in the real world too, but I want to build it with like new kind of wood, not old wood, something that'll be sustainable, something that'll last longer, something that'll be good for the earth. That kind of weird conversation, because what I think is going to happen is Aquarius is going to move forward on faith, on a connection to a bigger picture. You're going to go into a new direction that is away from the crowd, away from the herd, away from the norm, away from history. And yet at the same time, it's going to be more aligned to what you want to experience. And again, we've got Saturn moving back through Aquarius. And so here's where I think that there's an opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to have to work a little bit harder. This is going to require me really keeping an eye on my inspiration to make sure I keep checked into it so I don't get lost in the, sometimes when we're inspired to do something, we start talking about it and we tell other people, and the other people can't see our vision and they go, well, how are you going to do that? Well, the market isn't very good. It's not a very good time for this. It's not blah, blah, blah. And they'll inadvertently throw water on your idea or a wet blanket. So now is a time to enjoy studying and gathering, to formulate your idea, to connect with spirit, continually allowing for this inspired. It's really a conversation. An inspired idea comes through that gets you going. You start to take action based on faith here. Then you start to risk other people not understanding your actions. And then you start to understand the timing of things. Aquarius, I've told this story before, but when I started doing my work 3 years before I actually started working for myself, I had said to Spirit that I will take inspired action. And when you give me that nudge, even if things feel weird, I'm gonna act on it. So I worked in this chiropractic office, and this woman used to come in, and she used to wear a white coat. She was a psychologist. She worked with people who had, behavioral issues. I never thought that she would get what I do. And then she said something one day that absolutely made me think that there was more under the hood that I'd given her credit for. So I stuck my olive branch out and she took it. Meaning I said something like, I do readings. And then she was like, you're kidding. Next thing I know, she was the vessel that Spirit used to put me into a fair, which I worked at for 3 years while I worked that last job, which then built my clientele, which then gave me more opportunity to then individualize later. There's a part of you that's going to have to step outside of what you can see, what you know, and just start allowing for this inspired idea, taking action on the inspired idea, then slowing your roll again, and then allowing to yourself to be inspired again. So you're really kind of you're not by yourself. You're working with unseen forces that nobody else will understand, and yet they'll be very palatable to you, and keep moving forward. Okay, let's go on to our Pisces. Let me take a sip of my tea. Hello, Miss Lucy Rose. Alrighty. Okay. Pisces. This is an interesting energy because it's a precarious state of balance. There is a part of me that can't look at the detail of things. I just sort of have to hold my thoughts. Swords always represent my thoughts. Hold them in balance and allow for the moon to go through its phase so that I can allow for some illumination. Pisces, right now Mercury is making an opposition to Neptune. This could be making you feel as if you're having contrary thoughts between what you feel and what you're reading, learning, what other people are speaking to you. The little bit of the challenging side of Pisces is intuitively you may want to hear something from someone, and yet as they feed you the words, you may know in your heart of hearts that those words aren't completely authentic. And then you go into a state of confusion because you want to believe the words instead of the actions. So there's something going on here that's going to require you to be a little bit more like the scales of justice and to let your heart lead the way and to be brave in such a fashion or in the endeavor of it. Let's see. Pisces, our first angel is Sonia. The second is Rochelle. The third is Celeste. And the final is Isabella. Sonia is going to be a connection to the other side, connecting, meditating, spending time communing with forces you can't see with your eyes, source energy, God, angels. You can put your own label on it. It's all the same energy, because Rochelle is going to tell you that as you follow your heart, something is going to change positively, not negatively. And I think you may be afraid of that, Pisces. You may be afraid if things change, it won't be for the good. Sonia is asking you, or is being joined by the Truth card. Rochelle's being joined by the Harmonious Wealth card. Celeste is being joined by the Wasp, and Isabella's being joined by the Fire Fairy. All right, so I gotta say it, something's gonna pop. Really, something's gonna pop between Mercury's shadow period, which is going to take us all the way into December 16th. And while it will have gone into Libra, there's a very good possibility that whatever illusions or whatever you had hoped or whatever, if you're hanging out with somebody who drinks too much and you don't normally drink too much and you notice yourself drinking more because they do, this could be part of it. Anything to do with Neptune's energy in its challenging dynamics, because it's opposing Mercury right now in Virgo. So for Pisces, there is a part of you that's going to have to dig down into that intuitive part of you that may know something that doesn't necessarily make you happy. And that's why your guides and your angels are really encouraging you to go down to your truth, not the truth of cooperation, not the truth even of compassion. Because if you have compassion for someone's sad story, but their behavior is so destructive that their sad story becomes a crutch, it's time to pay attention to that, because Rochelle and the Wealth card are here. And as you follow and honor the guidance of your heart, you will feel more harmony, more wealth, more prosperity, more connectedness. And it's time to shift away from people, places, dynamics, and even, spirits. And I mean that when I talk about bourbon and whiskey that aren't serving you, that are maybe aggravating an old version of yourself. Back in COVID, I had a boyfriend when I was in my 20s that drank red wine. And I swear, after that relationship, I just drank red wine forever and ever. And it took a long time for me to consciously make other decisions. And COVID was part of that, because I was so locked in. I found myself doing things without consciously making a choice about it. So I started to think about, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to give up the spirits for right now. And in doing that, I noticed such a change in my body. Literally, I didn't realize how draggy I was. My point is, it's not, I didn't say I'm never going to have a drink again, but I wanted to be clear-minded enough to make choices now that were serving my journey. I no longer want to listen to the news and be drugged down by other things going on. I want to start to foster things, because as you shift the way you're thinking, this energy can come off. And I think the thinking is trying to put yourself in a situation that is not honoring your heart. So now Isabella says, yes, the timing is right for inspired action. And the truth doesn't have to go out to anybody else. This is first about an incorporation of truth within yourself, so that you can stand in that rooted and really allow the waters to sort of calm down, so that you can feel more clearly, so that then you see more clearly. It's not easy, Pisces, but it's totally doable. Mimobi, thank you so much for your generous tip. I always feel so loved and appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's go on to our Aries, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Let's see what we got going on here. Oops. Our tarot card is the Tower. Okay, Aries. This is super interesting to me, because the Tower is like Uranus to me. There's the lightning, unexpected change, and oftentimes people who are sitting in a castle that is not built on a proper foundation will find that foundation has been ripped out from underneath them. Now, let me offer it this way, because we have Jupiter retrograde in Aries right now, hanging out. I think it's like at 3 degrees, could be heading to 2 degrees right now. This is my beliefs. This is my wealth. This is my willingness to go in a new direction. Now we have Chiron also in Aries, where there is an exasperation of a wound of some kind, and the wound will refer to myself. And I remember for a long time, people just always griped and told me I was argumentative and I was difficult. And my dad used to say, you should be a lawyer because you're such an arguer all the time. And I used to think, you guys are just jerks because you just settle for less. You just settle for complacency. You settle for the lowest common denominator. Am I really being argumentative, or am I just trying to rise up out of a situation and try something new? I got to tell you, I think there's going to be a crazy epiphany that happens for Aries, something unexpected, something that appears to come out of nowhere, but I'm not sure I think this is negative. I think this could be totally positive. I think that every time when I was younger, every time I pulled the tower and reading for a girlfriend or somebody else, something good was about to change. So I'm not so sure that this is terrible. And I have to tell you too, because when I look at the characters, it may throw them for a loop, but there's no blood. Nobody was struck by lightning. So let's see what happens. Oh, how funny, DJ. I never wanted to become a lawyer because basically I really don't like fighting. I just don't like having BS, especially diminishing, be a herd animal, don't stretch outside your box. I don't want someone telling me that life. I don't like that. When I was in my 30s, my grandfather passed away in my late 30s. And then about a year later, my grandmother had a stroke. And rather than going to their daughter, my mother, and asking her to take care of her own parents, my father came to me at 36 or 37 and said, give up your life to take care of your grandmother. And I was like, no, let her daughter do that. Let her daughter do that. They've done so much for her. I feel like there's a important energy to Aries to claim yourself and not to let other people tell you that you're not being cooperative or that you're difficult. Because I think if you're always giving up yourself for them, oh man, that's just a recipe for freaking worse resentment and anger and bad things to happen. All right. So Aries, Vanessa is joining the Tower card. Indriel, the light worker, is joining the Tower and the Vanessa. Francesca, and then Archangel Michael. I just find it so humorous, how often Aries is called the aggressor or the warrior. You know who runs into the fire to save some stranger? Aries. You know who's the hero who goes to help people that have no face, that they don't know? Aries. It's so not fair. There's my Libra showing up, huh? All right, Aries. Vanessa's being joined by the King, Justice. Aries, Indriel's being joined by the Restriction card. Francesca's being joined by the Horse. And Archangel Michael is being joined by the Bear. Okay, I want to say it this way because I really feel like this shadow side of Aries is sort of hanging on their story. And poor me, we all have the poor me story. It's a human condition. But I think there's a liberation coming. I think Uranus is offering something where I kind of am able to root in a new idea of myself, because Vanessa is about taking action based on faith or fear, and there is the King. And I think this is about justice. I think it's about fairness. It's about taking action based on a bigger picture of who I am versus who you think I am. Because you know what? I think that if you really think about it, Aries, this is the thing about that I used to laugh about. I got so much shat about being a difficult human, but when somebody needed me in their wedding, thank you, I was the original girl with 17 bridesmaids dresses. There's a part of you that gets to really start to pay attention to the bright side of you. Slow it down a bit. Your ruling planet's going through Gemini, right? And yes, on the lower end energy of that, it's very physical and aggressive and blah, blah. But on the higher vibration of that, it's an opportunity to think how you interact with others. Gemini is the first place where the soul meets its thoughts, what it reads, how it's influenced by its siblings, and the initial environment around it. So if you really take the time to think about it, you're more hero than you are, warrior. And I want to offer you to really wrap your head around this, because Francesca is asking you to look at things from a different point of view. And this is asking you to go in a new direction, a more spiritual direction. Can you imagine if there was actually a fire and everybody was sitting around watching the fire and nobody would go in, or nobody would be the rescuer? Nobody would say, this isn't right. Without that, that's the reason why Aries is the first sign, because it's willing to say, I matter. So this is an opportunity to really conquer the history of what people have told about you and start to tell a new story. Years ago, I did this self-improvement thing, and in the group, they ultimately do this thing where, there's they equate you to a character, and the very highest level is to be Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And I could not believe when the group voted me Jonathan Livingston Seagull, because my whole life I'd been told I was difficult, I was a bitch, I was hostile, I was this, I was that. But I was never hostile just to be hostile. I was sick of imbalance. I was sick of things that weren't fair. I was sick of being the receptacle for everybody else's nonsense. So that's what made me difficult. And when I started to realize that part of that fire is inspirational. And if I didn't just try to burn people with my fire, but instead lit a fire and invited them to come sit around the fire, feel the warmth of the fire, and then be inspired by the fire, that was the way to start to balance all that I am and to start to enjoy being Aries rising. And so it is. Let's go on to our Tauruses. I'm really over the bad stories. Really, I'm tired of everybody and I don't care. I mean, anybody can do what they want to do, but I'm really pushing for the duality, for the wisdom of the challenges within each sign, each house, each astrological aspect. Because when we do this, then we have an opportunity to take that which has not apparently served us and to have it serve us in ways we could never have imagined. Beauty. And that's what that's what your soul knows when it dies. It goes over to the other side and it starts looking at things and it's like, dang, man, I missed that opportunity. I got all bunched up in the human experience. And then I'll go back again, try again. I'm going to go try again. I'll remember this time. What do I need? Oh, you can. Oh, are you for tips and such? Scardal, are you talking about that? You can go to my PayPal, Teri at terihunter.com. That's me. All right. Let's go on to Taurus. Teri, Teri at terihunter.com. TERIHUNTER. If you'd like to go send a donation to my PayPal, yeah, that'd be great. I love it. I like donations. My birthday's coming up. Okay. All right, Taurus, very exciting. Super fun, is the Queen of Wands. Now, I got to tell you, this is a really nurturing energy. She is, she represents the fire signs. So we can look at Sagittarius energy, we can look at Leo energy, and again, Aries energy. But I want to offer this because I think a lot is growing for you. And I think that as Uranus has transited Taurus, it has given you an opportunity to make bigger choices about what you want for you. The thing that I love so much about the Taurus energy is the singing, the voice, the beautiful singers come out of Venus and Taurus in general. And I feel when I look at her that she's starting to be willing to nurture the things that she loves, the things that make her feel like a queen, the things that make her feel inspired and creative and the bus driver in her own life. So let's look and see where we're going with this, because the idea of Uranus, if you're anywhere around 18 degrees, Taurus, rising moon, sun, and if you have stelliums, then you have an opportunity to allow Uranus to enlighten you. Don't be afraid of Uranus, because I think the only time that these planets are super jarring and crazy is when we're really unaware, when we're blindsided by not trusting and intuitive knowing. Never feels like something I can see with my eyes. It always feels like something I get to feel from a deeper level. Okay. Taurus, our first angel is Azure. The second is Crystal. The third is Archangel Gabriel. And the final is Rochelle. Oh, yummy. Azure is being joined by the Burden card. Crystal is being joined by the Perception card. Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the Eagle. And Rochelle's being joined by the Owl. Okay. So here we have Taurus. Another, I kind of think of it as a builder, because I think of the bull going through the fields and the oxen and the beasts of burden plowing all that big heavy stuff to make way for new things. And with the idea of the North Node and Uranus going through Taurus, it could make you super anxious. Like, let's get the show on the road. Let's get this all done. And at the same time, there's this kind of push-pull between wanting to move the story to a new level, a new vibration, and then wanting to feel safe and rooted in something. Because again, Taurus rules our family history. It rules what has been. So Azure is saying your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith and don't try to force it. Taurus energy will try to force it. God bless. God bless. I have a Taurus at 9 degrees. My moon is at 9 degrees Taurus. So this is about me practicing the baton pass. Oh, Spirit has the inspired idea. There's something going on that I can't see. And I want to offer it this way because I've been super triggered this year by certain things. And while at the time of feeling triggered and vulnerable and, oh God, I'm getting old, I'm by myself, what's going to happen to me? There's a part of me that's like, okay, I'll just deal with that later. I'm just going to keep staying the course of knowing that there's something going on that I can't see. Because there's Crystal Taurus saying there's more on the horizon, and there's your perception card. And part of that comes from you starting to really implement not just the law of attraction, but the law of allowing. And let's take that a step further. All of the divine laws of the universe. As we understand cause and effect, ebb and flow, reaction and action, then we stop being polarized by these things, and we seek out a wisdom that's like, okay, if this is happening now, then maybe there's something bigger and better on the other side of it. Because what I think's happening for Taurus is within this fixed energy, rather than getting stubborn and stuck in something that doesn't serve you, you're now starting to understand the owl's wisdom of ebb and flow. The law of attraction is really only as good as the law of allowing. So you can attract in a relationship, you can attract in money, and then you could be completely triggered that the money won't last, the relationship isn't going to be good, and then we go into this sort of panicky energy. So when we go back to the idea of, wait a minute, I've been a conscious creator. I've been a conscious, I've been using my thoughts consciously in connection with Spirit. I've been understanding that I will never march down the road of perfect thought, but I will instead go back and forth in the wisdom of every thought is two thoughts, the inspired thought, and then the human saying, how will I get there? And now I know that it isn't about how will I get there. It's my willingness to be patient as I am inspired into action. And that is how I truly follow my heart. So I think this is super important for Taurus, because I think that when I look at the Queen of Wands, it's about nurturing the inspirations within myself, nurturing something that makes me feel warm, fuzzy, fun, and sort of allowing things to not be as I see, but rather as I perceive. Okay. And I love that David Bowie song, one of my favorite songs of all time. I don't have, I'm kind of self-deprecating in a weirdo way. I don't really advertise ways to donate to me, but if you go to PayPal and you seek Teri at terihunter.com, you will find me. I only have one account, and it's Teri with one R, one I, and I'm more than willing to accept donations. Was it DJ? I love that. My very first record ever was Jim Croce's Time in a Bottle. Oh, And then I can't remember who's saying this, but I can see clearly now. Those I bought them at the RCA store when you used to buy 45s, and they were like $1 or 89 cents a piece. And my mom gave me $10 for my birthday. You got to sit in this little booth and listen to the. So my very first one was I can see clearly now. The rain is gone, and then the second one was changes. I think. No, I don't know. I think changes might have been later, actually. Now that I think about it, because time-wise, that wouldn't make sense. I think changes didn't come out for another 10 years. Anyway, my memory. Okay, on to our Geminis. The Six of Pentacles. Very interesting card because it's a have and have not card. And we see the gentleman who is receiving the money from the guy, and then we see the scales of justice over the other person. So there's an interesting dynamic here to me that why is he choosing one gentleman over the other? And when I look at the scales of justice, I almost feel as if this isn't about an emotional body, but something about how this particular character has been thinking of himself. If he has been thinking of himself in a way that is impoverished, he has inadvertently contributed to the benefactor giving to this gentleman here. We see this gentleman being almost focused is how I want to look at. You really see the focus of the two. So I wonder if this card right now is saying, are you going to be a have or a have not? Because the scales of justice will only respond to your focus. Now let's look and see, because we have Mars going through Gemini right now. And, on the unconscious level, I don't know if y'all saw, but in California, there was a gentleman who killed his ex-wife and took his 15-year-old daughter on the run. And then they got in a big shootout with police, and both the dad and the girl passed away. And I couldn't help but think about how, it felt so unconscious Mars in Gemini. And, the level of anger, the level of frustration. And I'm saying this not because I want you to turn towards that, because I think the law of attraction is actually saying to turn away from it, to tuck into your own life, your own community, your own family, and then to be aware of perpetrating energies for yourself that would kick in the law of attraction to bring more like-minded, so that you can feel a little more insulated from all of this energy. Because as we go backwards with Mars, as it starts to tee up to go backwards, there's going to be this rooting of that Martian energy. And it feels very much as if somewhere somebody's going, you done this to me, you were wrong, which is the warrior. I'm right, you're wrong. And so, it's creeping towards Aldebaran. That's a little bit challenging. Again, this is why we want to be aware and conscious, because I think the scales of justice are not looking at whether we're good or bad, but where our focus is. So our first angel for Gemini is the Patience card. The second is Chantal. The third is Bridget. And the final is Archangel Raphael. We have the Patience card being joined by Perception. We have Chantal being joined by the Burden card. We have Bridget being joined by the Spider. And we have Archangel Raphael being joined by the Fear card. I want to say this because it feels a little bit, I didn't really look about what was going on with Venus. I'm pretty sure she's close to the sun right now. And Venus rules our money. And I don't know why I want to bring her up. But this Patience card and this Perception card, you may be feeling in scarcity, or you may be feeling a bit unsafe in the workplace, is the way I want to put it. I know that normally Virgo rules the workplace, but our work teams are the people we interact with, our neighborhoods, going to the grocery store. That's part of a Geminian thing. So I want to offer it this way, because the Patience card to me is starting to be aware of that inner knowing, or start paying attention to your intuitive hits. And I want to offer it this way, because you're so cerebral that you initially may discount something. Years ago, there was a terrorist attack in Redlands, not that long ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I can't quite remember. and somebody went into someone's workplace. And a few days beforehand, I started getting the creeps about something happening. And I told Spirit, I don't want to know about these things because I can't change it. And yet at the same time, I told people that I had done readings for, if you get a creepy feeling, just leave. Just leave. Just remove yourself. I feel like right now, Gemini, trusting some sort of perception, looking at things a little bit more, giving it a little bit more credence. Because when I look at Chantal and I look at the burden card, I didn't really think this was about love. I thought it was more about trusting. It's almost as if maybe this energy of Mars going through Gemini has been feeling like a pummeling of something. It's been just kind of hitting you over and over again, and you're not really getting much respite, right? And now I sort of have to claim myself and take a rest, or give myself permission not to talk to people who irritate me, or give myself permission to, here's a perfect example. So the blinds have been broken for, I don't know, whatever. The guy who is supposed to fix it drives me freaking crazy. He so talks out both sides of his mouth. So to protect myself from going nuts, I just text him. I don't engage in a conversation. He leaves me 3-minute long messages that don't say anything. So rather than rubbing up against that, I've been pulling back and trying to be as nice as I can be and ignoring people being hostile, because I think you're going to have to look deeper into the networks. I'm not sure that you like all the people that you're dealing with right now, and dealing with the and anything Gemini, and it could be in the workplace, it could be, on the softball field with your kids, soccer coaches, I don't know, but they're all feel like interactions feel slightly prickly, and you may be feeling like Mr. Have Not during all of this. Now, this is where I want to go, because I feel as if this perception card is giving you an opportunity to start to look at, would I really want to be embraced by this group of people? Do I really like these people? If indeed I could, be with those people, would I want to be? Because I feel like there is some sort of epiphany coming that feels like a healing. And I don't know that I think this is fear as much as it's false evidence appearing real. And now I go from being a have not to being a have. And I feel as if I have got to let this process somehow reveal itself. So let me offer this for my Gemini, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. If you're feeling a little bit like somebody else is getting a bigger break than you are, or getting more privilege, or getting more grace, they get to call in sick every other day and you've got to work your ass off. That's the time to go to Spirit and start to say, okay, I'm starting to go to the big chief and really start. I need to have a new experience. I don't want to feel this disruption anymore. So help start to align things. And I think you'll start to see a change, because I want to offer it this way. There could potentially be where somebody becomes too familiar, and this person, whoever is the have, gets a little greedy, and then they start to expect to always have the grace of being able to be late, or to be able to act a certain way, and they may end up getting a bit of a reality check, and this will end up benefiting the Gemini energy. This will be, as you sort of remained calm and aware of your own perception, this could be where the balance starts to come back in. And what I have felt is not enough appreciation or adoration or accolades for the Gemini energy will start to come into play. Okay, hope that made sense. Booking along here. These shows are getting super long. Oh, Lucy, thank you for letting us know. I think Venus kind of likes every once in a while being the evening lady. She gets to wear her special evening party shoes, take out her glitzy bag. Well, and when she moves into Scorpio, she'll be wearing some fun stuff there too. Oh, all right. On to our Cancers. Your tarot card is the King of Cups. Very, very interesting. I want to offer it this way, because this would be, in many ways, would represent a Cancer man, the male energy, but I want to offer it this way. I think this is about being able to start to trust your emotional body. And if we look at the card, these are not calm seas. There's a bit of a wobble there, and there's different hues and different opportunities that wobble of water will offer you. And I want to offer it this way, because sometimes Cancer gets a little nervous. They'll be like, oh no, if things are copacetic, everything's going to kind of be a little bit challenging. But I want to offer it this way, because we see the red ship over there, right? The red ship could feel like a little bit of a warrior ship. And then we have this nice little fishy jumping out of the water. And we see more yellow on this side of the card than we do here. So the King of Cups is really talking about Cancer, allowing not just your emotional body, but to dig deeper beyond your emotions into your intuitive body. And if you have some sort of trepidation or some sort of concern about any sort of energies that may feel that they are not complementary to what you want, as we go into the holidays, this can be super challenging for some families. It can be the time of year when the stress level and obligation and expectation becomes enormous. So I feel like, let's look and see where the detail comes, but I feel like this is about nurturing your intuitive body to make emotional decisions that feed yourself as well as the group. Sometimes not picking up the phone is the best thing you can do. Because the dominant energy in this King of Cups is really, there's no Scorpio energy in here. I don't see any sort of Scorpion energy. We really do see the fishes over and over again. So I think there's something about intuition. Bridget looking deeper. Serena is about abundance. Francesca is about worry. And Opal is about our children and them being watched over. All right. Cancer. Bridget's being joined by the Joy card. Serena's being joined by the Bee. Francesca's being joined by the Water Fairy. And Opal's being joined by the Hawk. Okay. So while Pluto's been transiting Capricorn, it's been making an opposition to Cancer. And we've watched, I think, of all the signs, Cancer's taken maybe one of the hardest hits during this whole COVID and deprivation and isolation period. And I feel as if now is a time to really claim what makes you happy. We think of Cancer as the mother, the nurturer. And when we think of that, it's always going out. It's not coming in. We think about Cancer representing our homeland, our patriotism, the family, the home with which we are raised. And I want to offer it this way, because having gone through so much, and if you're a late born Cancer and you're experiencing this opposition to Pluto, the opportunity may be to realize that you can only nurture others as well as they will allow you to nurture them. You can only love someone as much as they can accept love. And so maybe it's about turning back onto loving on yourself, taking care of you, and sort of identifying where you may be trying to love somebody out of a challenging place and it really wouldn't serve you. It would be better to go back in and understand that whatever this warship is that's coming towards them gives them an opportunity to be empowered from a new place. Because with Bridget and the Joy card coming in, I often think that sometimes people nurture by wanting to talk people's problems through, or let's talk about that. Oh, let's, every single reality show like The Hills or Laguna Beach High or The Housewives, they always stage it where the women sit down and then talk about their problems. This is counterintuitive to actually being a happy human, because being able to turn away from the problem and allow Spirit to reveal a solution requires an ability to allow, and that comes through serenity. So Cancer, I think Spirit is really asking you to dig deep into a place that feels a little bit more serene. Again, looking at the idea, this isn't about crawling away from a situation, and it's not about trying to love someone through a situation as much as it's about identifying how willing am I to be calm during a situation, to find joy during disruption. Because Francesca says that negativity will breed more negativity. And there's the water fairy again. So we don't want to give too much challenge to or we don't want to give too much life to a challenge or a problem. It's not about ignoring it. It's about being able to identify when you've done all you can do and now you're just chewing on it, chewing, and worry doesn't serve you, because there's a sign and an omen coming. And if you're worrying too much, your head won't be up to see it. Sometimes, and I believe this more and more, divine disruption is where I think something's going to be great for me and it's not. And oftentimes I refer to my stint on Lada's channel. I loved being on Lada's channel. It was I learned a lot about myself, but it did not move my story forward. It didn't create a bridge with her. And those were the things I thought it would do. And I set myself up for disappointment. And at the same time, as I stepped back, I realized that Spirit had my back in a much bigger way, because my perception was very small and my holding of myself was very small. Okay. Let's go on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Now, anybody who's at like 18 degrees Leo, 19 degrees Leo, you're going to be feeling the station of Saturn, as Saturn is stationing to go direct. I think the planet, literally slows its roll, and then the energy becomes quite dense. So let's see what Spirit wants Leo to know. This is beautiful. Leo, this is the Six of Cups. This is the only card in the deck where all the cups are full. They're all full of life and beautiful things. I think of them as gardenias. They smell lovely. And there's an offering of something here, but there also has to be a childlike innocence and maybe walking away from the adult dynamic a little bit. Let's see where we're going with this, because if anybody rules childlike energy, romance, fun, enjoyment, hobbies, that might be the very energy that helps counter the Saturn thing. I was talking to Brian Coulter months ago, and I've been having these Pluto squares. I mean, honestly, everywhere, every which way from Sunday. Then we added Chiron and Saturn meeting in my chart, blah, blah, blah. And what he said to me was, Teri, those are the times not to resist, to actually do Venusian things. I've got a Taurus moon and a Libra sun, so I've got a lot of creativity in me, and that's a way to calm my mind. It's a way to surrender in a moment. So let's see where Spirit is offering you the cup of love and the cup of prosperity and the cup of enjoyment, and to take it in. Our first angel is Archangel Michael. The second is Merlina. The third is Caressa. And the final is Layla. Because the opposition to Saturn may feel like old historic obligations, duty, depression could come in. It could feel like, as hard as you're trying to actually make something happen, you're being thwarted. And that thwarting may be Spirit saying, don't try to take action just yet. Have the courage to allow us to extend our cup to you. And in the meantime, keep your eye on the prize. I have such buyer's remorse for wearing this turtleneck right now. You have no idea. Archangel Michael and the restriction card. Leo, we have the dog and Merlina. We have Caressa being joined by the Lady of the Lake. And we have Layla being joined by the Baird. Okay. I want to offer this because the Saturn opposition could really trigger you, because it's like, honestly, Saturn is a huge wet blanket on Leo of all the signs. It's like, please don't make me do what I don't want to do. Please don't make me feel a feeling of being like obligated to cleaning my room and doing my dishes and cleaning out the garage, because this is a childlike fun. This is a childlike innocence. This is where you believe in superheroes and fairy tales, and you wear butterfly wings out at night and fly around your neighborhood, and you're 40 years old. So I really want you to kind of enjoy that Leo kind of unadulterated expression That's the way I want to look at it. So here we have Archangel Michael and the restriction card. I think this is about now is the time to really see where you've been restricting yourself from having courage to let the universe bring you more abundance, bring you more joy, bring you more experiences. Being a leader, being a fixed sign, sometimes Leo will think, I've got to do it to make it happen. That's not always the case, because the dog represents love, it represents sincerity and loyalty, and Merlina represents confusion. And I want to offer it this way, because if you're pushing up against something and Saturn is inadvertently creating this opposition that is stopping things, or you're feeling the energy of it as it's been going back and forth, then you may be creating a platform that isn't really going to serve this energy as much as you think it is, because Caressa is at the end of a life cycle. New happiness awaits you. And now is the courage to step in the arena, because this is the other thing I want to say. Leo as an energy is naturally one of the challenges is having the courage to follow your heart. People may think you're following your heart. It may appear that you're following your heart, but oftentimes there'll be some sort of structure behind that has a have to, or a I got to, or I need to attached to it. And I think that part of this idea is to start to rewrite the story, to start to tell a story from a new angle and start to talk to spirit about anchoring that story in. I'm not sure I have the courage. Leo rules courage, and sometimes the lack of courage. So help me to step out of feeling restricted. Help me to start to dance to the new story of what I want to live, because I know it's through my connection to spirit, because spirit is going to offer me that first cup that gives me the courage, the knowing I have support to move the story forward. Recently, when I've been going through some of my challenges, and I've been saying to spirit, this is so frustrating. I've been here, done that. Why am I walking through this road again? Spirit said to me, Teri, you'll always be able to reach greater awareness of your vibration, but also sometimes people on the outside perceive you do these things with ease. And maybe when they see you lacking the ease, it helps them to trust that when they lack ease, there's still somewhere that you're being supported and a door opening that you can't see. So I've really become quite an explorer in my own life. I've used this conjunction between Saturn and Chiron in my own chart, meaning my Chiron Saturn transit, to slow down and look at where, am I feeding the wound, oh, poor me, or where am I allowing it to transform? All right, let's go on to our final sign, Virgo. Virgo, you got the Lovers card. Now, this is super, super fabulous card because it's a major arcana, has a very strong energy. It also rules Gemini. It rules choice and the vulnerability that you must exhibit to make a choice that truly serves you. When I was studying the Lovers, I remember when I would do practice readings and that card would come up, women would always be like, oh my God, I'm getting a boyfriend. And I'd have to kind of pop their bubble and say, well, you may be getting the choice of a partner, but we've got to look at what that choice means for the trajectory of your life. And that's what I think this is about. So Virgo, somewhere you get to be vulnerable to a choice that you're about to make in some sort of partnership. And Archangel Gabriel is here overseeing this. And all the characters within this card are open. Their bodies are open, their arms are open. And I also believe that there's an opportunity to start to look at how I process things. And if when I process things, I tend to take on the lion's share of responsibility. I remember dating a guy who was not very financially viable. And as I had not been in a relationship for a long time, it felt good to just be a we. And then I found myself, as the relationship progressed, making unreasonable demands on myself. Well, I'll be the breadwinner. Well, I'll be the one that takes care of this, because the more I was in the relationship with him, the more it became obvious that he wasn't able to truly start to drive the bus of his life, let alone a life of we. So Virgo, I really want you to start to look at maybe potentially where you might be taking on more responsibility. Mercury is opposing Neptune right now. It's going to kind of be doing that for the most of this week. So there could be this feeling of loss, but is it loss, or is it an opportunity to elevate a relationship or a way of thinking to something that's aligned to more balance? Let's see. Virgo, our first angel is Rosetta. The second is Opal. The third is Archangel Raphael. And the final is Azure. I kind of look at this and I think, oh, Virgo, maybe this is giving you an opportunity to go into Neptune's higher vibrations and allow yourself to enjoy, the idea of writing fanciful stories, or enjoying more inner child development, meaning, I want to be a superhero when I grow up. I want to be an actress. I want to be a singer. I want to write great stories. I want to save the world. Because I've got these two child cards, and I really think there's something about making a choice for your inner child. Rosetta is being joined by the love card, the dog. The butterfly is joining Opal. Archangel Raphael is being joined by the movement card, and Azure is being joined by the horse. I want to offer this for my Virgos because, the difference between you and Gemini is that Virgo is practical, analytical, goes through a process of things, delivers a product of some kind. And I feel like the Lovers now is making a choice to be vulnerable to delivering a product to yourself, to digging in deep and being loyal to your inner child and what you want to experience now. People get to be 17 or so and they are starting to be hounded. What do you want to be when you grow up? What college do you want to go to? La, 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 la. And there's not enough life experience to truly make an informed decision. So you do it on a concept. So I think what's happening for Virgo is you're starting to realize that God is watching over you as you allow yourself to start to blossom in ways that maybe you haven't given yourself permission to before, because Archangel Raphael is the healer, physical body of healing. So it could pertain to that. You could go in new directions with your physical health. But I also want to offer that this mental aspect shifts into a place that feels more fertile for me to feel like I matter. And because I start to matter, my happiness starts to matter. Everything I endeavor for anyone else, any way that I'm in duty or of service to someone else, starts to uplift, starts to become more balanced. Because having the horse riding out of the spread tells me that there's a part of you that gets to believe in a deeper version of yourself that is not dutiful to someone else or another entity, but in taking care of you, you're actually taking care of the entity. Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith and don't try to force it. If for some reason Virgo is wanting to procreate, bring children into the world, that is what you desire, that is what you love, I want to offer it this way. Relax. Stop trying to bring a child forth. Stop, take a break, take a real break on the inside, the outside, and let nature and joy and fun and frivolity give you a new experience. If it doesn't produce an actual baby inside of you, it will produce a very fertile environment for that to happen. There's a lot of people who are of childbearing years, and the idea of bringing children into the world right now might feel a little daunting. There's a lot of rules and regulations we've never had before. There's a lot of dynamics and disruption going on. So I think for Virgo, this is about being vulnerable to a bigger picture of what you love, to begin to give life and priority to that, and to be loyal to yourself and those inner musings. And as you start to implement those and go through the process of experiencing them, I think you'll start to help other people heal or balance their lives. So that's it for now. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week, October 9th. We'll have had a big week. Pluto will be moving forward. Mercury will be forward. We'll be seeing Saturn speaking ever so loudly. And Uranus saying, excuse me, I can hear you. Or maybe it'll be the other way around. But in any case, cool heads prevail. Conscious choice is the name of the game. And divine disruption can lead to great happiness. So I'll see y'all later, guys. Love you. And for those of you that experienced some hardship this week, my heart goes out to you, and I pray for you and your fur babies. So I'll see you next week, everybody. Peace out.